Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are installing a new product from our friends over at Fleece Performance Engineering. I reached out to Chase when I saw this product become available, and he said, I'll get one out to you. Let me know what you think. So we are going to make a video on this product and give our honest feedback about it. So one thing I do like about Fleece is FPE, right? Fleece Performance Engineering. We like joke, fits perfect every time. The amount of effort that Fleece puts into a lot of products to have the fit and finish work well, I think is commendable for a company as large as they are, for how well the instructions are and stuff like that. A lot of times when I buy a Fleece product, I know it's going to work as advertised, and if they do have issues, they usually stand behind it pretty easily. Like I've had very, very, very good luck with Fleece products in the past. So although we were unable to use their AC relocation kit for our compound kit, we are going to take advantage of this new transmission cooler. So we even got little Blakely out here today. I'm not sure for how long. She doesn't always last the longest, but we do have our fleece kit here. So in the box, you guys can see here, we have some more heat shielding. We have our different lines. Very nice how they did the instructions. You just go on the website. The lines have different color codes. So I know this purple one is going to be with a heat exchanger. I believe this orange one is without a heat exchanger. And then the one that doesn't have any label is used for both. So very, very nice. And I'm going to go ahead and start slicing this box open here. And I should say, this replaces your factory transmission lines, as well as puts a better cooler in your transmission. Now, if you guys remember me complaining this summer with towing, stuff like that, our transmission in traffic tends to get a little warm with the low stall. Blake, you want to hold the camera for us? Yeah. All right, so we're transferring over to Blake while I tearing this stuff apart like an absolute banshee here. So inside of here, I'm assuming is our adapter fittings and fittings. That would be correct. We have a bunch of nice fittings here, a couple of brackets, some zip ties, some bolts. Of course, we get our koozie sticker and our QR code for the instructions, which I already looked at the instructions before I even opened this box. I wanted to see kind of what they recommended for install time, so I could kind of plan this out accordingly. Nothing worse than taking on a project that you can't get done because of time constraints. Now, to be fair, this project will probably take me all day. They say it takes 4 hours. I have children running around, and I only have so much time where I'm not having to do my part as a parent. So we're gonna get this cooler out. I'm really curious. Man, they really package this stuff well, though. I'll tell you that.
I know. I was trying ripping up that thing, and it wouldn't.
They package this thing well. But I will say, when you're talking about thin coolers and stuff, there are some companies out there that thing could get hand delivered to your house and it would probably still get messed up in shipping. Alright, so we got our cooler out. That definitely looks a little bit thicker than stock, huh? And it's black, so you know what they say, it's got to be better, right? So this is their new cooler. Now, for starters, guys, we do have this truck apart because we're doing a bunch of stuff, right? But we will kind of go over what needs to be removed. First things first, the cooling stack cover. Then you got to remove your grill. And then you're going to remove this and these plastic pieces, or these rubber pieces. All right, this is the transmission cooler that we are replacing here. You guys can see down there, I've already dropped something in there. Shout out. But there's a transmission cooler line. There's a transmission cooler line. And then, if you guys look over here, we have our heat exchanger. This is the part built into the radiator here. We have that piece, as well as that piece down there. So, we are replacing those lines. And then our transmission cooler, this is another part of it right here. This is the other part of it right here. And these snake their way through the frame rail here. They go around the turbo here. And then if you guys look, they go down the frame rail there. And then they terminate at the transmission. Before you install this, two things to think about. Number one, drain pans. Okay, all this stuff's gonna leak a little bit of transmission fluid as you're doing it. And if that is the case, collect all of the transmission fluid that has been expelled out of your transmission and then put it in an old jug to measure it. That way you can make sure you put the correct amount of fluid back in the transmission. Now, with that being said, the transmission cooler from Fleece does appear to be quite a bit thicker, so I do think that there is some differences there, but that will at least give you a good starting point. I just hate to see you guys put a new transmission cooler in and all of a sudden now you toast your transmission. That would be no bueno. Well, boys, I tell you what, it's been a minute since I had to pull a 4th-gen cooler, but that's usually how I do it. Maybe there's an easier way. Let me know in the comments. Always down for new ideas. But there's our old cooler in all its glory. You pull that little line out. All I do is I push the radiator back ever so slightly, and you work its way out. Makes a heck of a mess. A little brake cleaner. No one be the wiser. We got all of our stuff disconnected here, and now I'm kind of curious how Fleece is going to have us deal with these quick disconnect lines. I'm gonna look at the instructions, but essentially you have a bolt-on bracket right there. I want to say there's one more, I think back here there is, and then it goes to your heat exchanger, and then it goes to the transmission itself. So I believe this kit removes the heat exchanger, or the thermal bypass, excuse me. Obviously with these lines here, I do believe that's the case. So I'm gonna go ahead and open her up and see what she does. But we will get you guys some measurements here on the fleece stuff of how much bigger this cooler is. Okay, as I've alluded to, this kit is set up to do work with trucks that have these and trucks that don't have this. This is a heat exchanger. Inside of here is typically like a bar and plate style. Think of it almost like a oil cooler on your engine. And we are going to be removing these fittings in replace for the new fittings. Now, one thing to note on these, I don't know if this is applicable to this application, but I do know on the Duramaxes, this hardware here is responsible for holding the oil cooler tight in this housing. So you only want to remove one at a time. Once you get the first one removed, you will then go ahead and install your fitting hand tight, and then you'll do the second one, get it installed hand tight, and then you will tighten everything down. If you disconnect all this, there's a chance that the oil cooler slides down in here, and then you got to go fishing. So from there, it's pretty straightforward. We'll get rid of those brackets like I talked about, get the rest of these factory lines removed here, and move on with the process. I am going to disconnect them at our thermal bypass block as well. And then once we get all the lines out, all the transmission fluid leaks out, we will go ahead and start putting our new lines in. As I alluded to, they are marked. So if you have a truck without a heat exchanger, you use one set of lines. If you use it with a truck with a heat exchanger, you use a different set of lines. I will kind of lay those out here. I'm going to go ahead and finish removing the lines, and I'm going to get our fittings installed into our bar and plate style cooler. Okay, so this is set up a little different than the Duramaxes, which is nice. These simply thread out, and as you guys can see here, ORB, and then you're going to install your new ones here. A little bit of transmission fluid on this O-ring goes a long way. We're going to thread this in here. So that is connection 1. I've just been using a croissant, like so, and we croissant these fittings in. Remember, aluminum needs to be tight, but not, oh my God, like that. And then I'll pop that one down, swap it out. Maybe we'll even do it on camera. Probably not though. That's all it took. These actually come off pretty stinking easy, guys. Or did it slip? Did it slip? That is the $1 million question here. Nope. It is, in fact, loose. I just am, in fact, getting old. So we'll get this one swapped out here. Like so. I always save my old stuff just in case this goes south. Kind of like when we did our AC reroute that ended up not working out for us. You always want to keep your stock parts until it's down. So I'm gonna need 2 hands, but there's your 2 fittings there. Okay, and those fittings are now in. We can continue moving on back. I'll spare you guys the underhood struggle here. But again, those 2 bolts, that back line should be coming out. The ones on the trans, I pull kind of together. We're gonna disconnect it, like I said, from the thermal bypass right there. So that will kind of split the lines for us, and then we can move on from there. So if you guys follow me over here, we're gonna look at the OEM cooler versus the fleece cooler. Obviously, size constraints do require it to be the similar length, okay? As well as the same height. Now, when you look at these coolers, you're like, oh wow, it's not much of an upgrade. And to be honest, when I opened the box, I was like, that's it, you know? Same dimensionally, lengthwise or widthwise and height-wise. Where the fleece cooler really starts to shine here is in, we look at these in a cross-sectional area, so to speak here. You guys can kind of see where fleece is making their claim about extra flow. Here we have a core that is 1 inch thick. The OEM is coming in at 9/16. So we are gaining almost double the thickness of the cooler. And then show over here, B. If you guys look here, even our end tanks here, our end tanks are about 1 inch and 3/16. Our end tanks here are about 7/8. So bigger end tanks and a bigger core for thickness. So that is where they're getting their extra cooling capacity. Pretty cool. And hopefully we see that translate in our transmission fluid temperatures, especially sitting in traffic, helping pull some more heat out of that fluid. All right, guys, we are down in the belly of the beast. I got the clips removed so we can go ahead and wiggle our transmission lines out. I always do them kind of evenly. You guys kind of see there, like so. And then we remove that line assembly together. There is your up front line, so you got to remove a bolt here. And then there is that one bolt. Let me get this to focus a little better here. There's that one bolt right there, just underneath your turbo discharge to elbow to remove for your hard lines. So I'm gonna get those two bolts out, pull the rest of the line kit off, and then in this transmission here, you guys see these two fittings, the quick disconnects here and there. You will unthread those and install the two included ORB adapter to ANs, and that will allow us to install the remainder of the fleece line kit. Now, one thing I do know on my transmission lines with my new downpipe and everything, I have a lot more room down here than most because my downpipe comes up here. But essentially, when you route your new transmission lines, one thing you want to be cognizant of is how close the downpipe is to your lines. You don't want to melt any lines, stuff like that. Now, fleece does include some shielding. Use it to your discretion. And you know what, guys? Sometime for the good of the colony, a one-piece transmission line becomes a two-piece transmission line, and they're out. So we got all these out. So our old system is completely removed. I do not, if you're gonna cut them, that's fine. Do whatever you gotta do. My only thing when you cut them, make sure they're disconnected from the trans. For whatever event, there's a little fluid in there. You don't want metal getting in there. Laws of physics and stuff. It's more of just a peace of mind thing for me, but just my tip on that. Now I'll put those adapters in the trans and we'll start routing lines. Okay, as I alluded to before, guys, there's gonna be orange stickers, purple stickers, and no stickers. This no sticker line is the longest line in the kit. It's 92 inches. It goes from the driver's side of our trans cooler all the way to our 68 RFE. The short little line right there goes from our fluid cooler to our transmission cooler, heat exchanger, excuse me. And then this longer line that has the purple sticker, which, where's the purple sticker? Purple sticker, such as that. That purple sticker then goes from our heat exchanger over to our 68 RFE. So pretty simple line routing here. It's not rocket science, thank goodness. And we will go ahead and mount these lines up. Now, in addition to the heat shrink, or not heat shrink, this heat tube that Fleece provides here, we will also be doing our own as well. This is nice stuff. You could put it on after the fact, so you identify the areas in which you are worried about heat. Pull the adhesive off, slip this over. My only complaint about this stuff over time is it tends to fade, like the adhesive. So the only thing I'd recommend is putting a couple of zip ties. So run it a little long where it gets away from the heat and put some zip ties on it to secure that stuff. It actually works out really, really well. I'm assuming this is probably more worried about the turbo air more than anything. As I go through and install these lines, I will show you guys kind of where I decide to put this. And if I decide to add any extra, again, with our truck being compounds, it's not exactly what this kit was designed for. One last tip before I install these, even though they came in a sealed package and everything, I am gonna brake clean these lines and flush them out. I'm not saying that Fleece did not do that. However, this dusty shop, it's been sitting on the shelf for a month or two. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I don't put any new debris into our 68 RFE. So always a good idea to clean your lines out. I don't care who makes them, to prevent future issues. Okay, so we got our cooler mounted with our lines clocked. Took a couple times, but essentially you got to cheat that line back. And the reason why you have to cheat the line back, you guys see our power steering cooler. So you cheat it back, but not obviously jammed into the radiator. There's still a little bit of clearance there. And then you zip tie it there. I've been adding these little 3/4 heater hose isolators any place it could rub. I'll forward that message along. That's really the only thing so far I've been like, I know this, like, this is more of a me problem than anything. This hose is tough stuff, but in my mind, I just can't not do anything. So we have our 2 lines routed here. We got both of our connections made at our heater core. Our heat exchanger. Now it is time to route them down to the transmission, and that will pretty much be a wrap on this kit. Really not bad. Filming this, looking at instructions, we are currently at 1.5 hours. Now, I did take some shortcuts up here, not having to pull that whole assembly out, and we already had our intake out of the way. So, and our wheel well liner. So that does help us aid in install. I should have covered that. Intake box out of the way. You don't need the battery out of the way. You need wheel well liner out of the way, and that is it. So I did make our life a little easier with the truck kind of being already apart, but I wanted to make sure we did a good video with good pictures or a good step-by-step for you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and route all these lines, and the last thing I'll show you guys is how they're routed, how they're secured, and we can move on from there. Okay, so I looked at their instructions again. This line gets routed down, this line's routed correct. We are going to go same thing here to that factory mounting hole, go sneak by the turbo and come down there. They gave us new P-clamps to use, which is nice. Keeps the line secure. And then I did confirm the foil of this goes on the lines right next to the turbo area, just as I had figured it would. But it's always nice to go check the instructions, make sure you're not losing your mind. So honestly, not terrible. We got our lines clocked, routed. I took advantage of this extra clamp here and a random bolt I had, and that secures it. This line's routed nice. This line comes down, and then you guys see here, kind of went around the frame, P-clamp there. Now, I did use extra heat shield that I had. They do give you enough to go from about halfway past this boot and down. However, due to our downpipe construction, I added a little bit more. Again, not a stab on them, but here we go. You guys can see there, we used our frame clamp up there. And then we have our lines clocked here. Very, very nice kit. All encompassing. We got our lines down and up. Again, our downpipe's a little close, so this is the extra heat shielding that I provided. You can get it on Amazon, 20 bucks for 10 feet. Will definitely cover you if you're a worrywart like myself. But this kit, honestly, installed awesome. Instructions were very clear, which line goes where. The color of the different lines was very nice. I'm gonna put all of our heat shields on and stuff like that, or our air dams and all that back on. I'll see how that fits, and then we'll wrap this video up. One thing I would recommend, I get these off Amazon. These clips right here, A11146, work really well at replacing dodges. You can also get these push style clips too. Those are like for the Duramaxes, but these work really well on the Ram trucks. So you're gonna break a lot of these in the process. Okay, so everything fit just like stock. Back here, looks great. Last step, I'm draining all the fluid out of the cooler in the 2 pans. I'll measure that. Honestly, I'm gonna go with at least a quart. With the bigger capacity of the cooler, I'd say make sure you check your fluid, but at least a quart, something to keep in mind that you have on hand before you do it. But the fit and finish looks good. One of those products, you'll never really see it in the engine bay, but you'll see it hopefully on the transmission temp gauge. Now, I'm gonna end this video off here as an install and initial review of it. I liked it. Everything fit good. All the parts were included. For a stock truck, if you guys have compounds, stuff like that, something to think about, real cheap on Amazon. And then that 3/4 inch heater hose on a couple spots. Again, I don't think this hose would have chafed, but I'd rather be a little bit proactive instead of reactive. I'm gonna go ahead and just let Chase told me to let him know what my feelings were. And that's honestly what I'm gonna tell him, is maybe a couple isolators for where the line gets a little close. And that's about it, guys. This kit installed really well. Had all the fittings, all the parts, those good style P-clamps with the rubber insulators. It fit great. None of the lines were too long. We have good clearance. They use a good hose, good fittings. So again, just another knockout for a Fleece Performance engineering product. Big thank you to those guys for sending us out one to give it a shot. I appreciate it. And again, I will keep you guys updated when we start to tow on it. If I see a notice in cooler temp reduction, I have a lot of good data from this season of towing with it. So again, I'm interested to see how this all pans out. But I do think if you have a transmission failure or something like that, this is a great option to replace your lines and your cooler all in one shot. If you have a leaking cooler, again, it kind of solves all the problems. These lines are made out of aluminum, at least it looks like aluminum, so they're not as susceptible to rust, but they can get quite a bit of corrosion. If you find yourself in need of lines, it's not a bad package deal. It all comes together in this box, shipped well. Again, good instructions, comes with the sticker and the koozie, so of course, you know it's gonna be awesome. And just, in my opinion, 100% would buy this for any 13 and up truck that I ever own here going forward. Give this one a big thumbs up. Drop your comments down below, guys. Subscribe if you are not already. And as always, I'll catch y'all on the next one.